This is Alberta Hemsley of Withrow International High School in Cincinnati, Ohio. Today we're going to be looking at liquid volume using a cylinder. Each kind of cylinder tells you the size by the number over the top line. If the cylinder has a plastic piece, that is not to move up and down to measure. It is there to keep the cylinder from chipping if it should fall over. Notice the long line going around every 10 milliliters. This long line is there to help you line up visually to read the right numbers. Put your eye close up to the cylinder and try to make the line and back invisible. This would be the correct position to read something around the 90 milliliter line because you can't see the blue line. Let's try to read some numbers on the 100 milliliter cylinder. We can't read this liquid level yet because the lines aren't lined up. Here the lines still aren't lined up. Notice the thick line that's at the top of the liquid. We call this the meniscus. We will read to the bottom of the meniscus. Notice that there are 10 lines between 60 and 70. There is a longer line halfway between 60 and 70. That line is 65. This meniscus is 2 lines up from 65. So it's between 67 and 68. We will estimate a number between 1 and 10 between the 7 and the 8. Let's call this one 67.5. Here's another reading. This one is a little below halfway between 50 and 60. Notice how we have it lined up so that the meniscus is only seen as a straight line. We'll read this one as 54.4. Let's move to a 50 milliliter cylinder. On this one, there are still just 10 lines between the 40 and the 50. This one looks like it's one line above the 45 line. We'll call this one 46.0. This reading is between the 35 and the 36 line. Let's call it 35.3. This reading is between the 23 and 24 line. Let's call it 23.5. This one we shouldn't read at all because we're not looking at the meniscus straight on. We're looking at it from a top angle. Move your head and your eye so you're looking at the meniscus straight on. This one reads 23.3 maybe. This meniscus is between the 28 and the 29 line. Let's call it 28.5. Let's move to a 25 milliliter cylinder. Notice that on this 25 milliliter cylinder, there are 10 lines between 20 and 25. We will still only read to the 10th of a milliliter. Again, don't read from a top angle. Read the meniscus straight on. Remember, every 2 lines is 1 milliliter. The ones are the longer lines. We'll read this one as 19.4. This is the same cylinder with some different lighting. Can you get 19.4? Here is a plastic 25 milliliter cylinder. Notice that every 2 lines is 1, and notice that there's almost no meniscus. The reading here should be 18.1. This is a glass 10 milliliter cylinder. This cylinder has 10 lines between each number, so it's going to go to 2 decimal places. Notice that the meniscus here is very pronounced. Read to the bottom of the meniscus. We'll read this one as 8.55. We'll read this next one as 8.65. The last thing for today is a cylinder or box that could contain 1,000 milliliters. This first one should not be read from this angle. It's too much from the top. Now we got the meniscus going just on the side, looking at it straight on. And we can read this one as perhaps 450 milliliters. There you go. You can now read some cylinders. Enjoy!